and welcome to another live stream here with me, Chantelle Here, and my special guest today, Russell Watson. Russell is this is his first live stream that he's been a guest upon or even hosted. Is that right, Russell?
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So, oops, I've just closed off the comments. We don't want that. So we've got here on this channel, we talk about live streaming. We talk about the different ways to do it. We've got some videos on the different softwares and how to verify, all these sorts of things. So what's made you decide to, now's the time for live streaming for you?
Well, I've done a lot of Zoom calls and that sort of thing, so I'm pretty comfortable with all that. But I joined Business by Design, and
That's the James Wedmore program,
right? And I'm building a course, online course, and so part of their launch process is to do either a webinar or a live, and I want to talk more about which and what and so on.
Yeah, my brain.
Yeah, but so I figured I needed to learn how, and there was nobody more qualified than you. So I thought, hey, the best way is to just come on and ask.
No pressure, no pressure. So obviously you have your own YouTube channel. We pop the links in down below if you want to go and check out Russell's YouTube channel. Russell, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to get you from, whatever it was that you were doing to sitting in a chair talking about live streaming.
Well, I grew up in Massachusetts. Right out of high school, I joined the U.S. Coast Guard and spent 4 years at sea and goofing around and in schools learning electronics, which goes way back my background, and ultimately wound up spending about 22 years as an oceanographer, mapping sea floors and traveling all over the world and jumping on boats.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. When I retired, I came to sunny Florida, where you'll find me today, and moved into a manufactured housing community, got involved in the HOA part of it. And from there, I finally wound up creating a YouTube channel for folks who come to Florida and are interested in these communities, because there's quite a bit you should know before you make your choice. So that's how I started my channel. And then to live streaming is now in promoting the course, which is kind of the next step up from my channel. I'm going to want to learn how to do live streams. And I'm really on the fence between, do I want to do one a month or something and try and reach out and connect with folks on a regular basis? Do I just want to do them as part of a launch? Do I want to do a live stream or webinar? I've got a lot of questions.
Well, I'm going to try and answer your questions. I may not be able to answer them all, but I'm certainly going to give it a red hot go. So live streaming versus webinars, like we've seen examples, like, because Russell, you and I are both part of a lot of the same communities, BBD, Primal Video Accelerator program. We see a lot of people utilizing all these different tools, and they all work for different reasons. So you kind of going to have to sit down and have a think about what your end goal will be. Now, obviously, I'm team live stream, like regular live streaming here on YouTube. And so I'm obviously going to be skewing a little bit that way. Speak of the man himself, and he's just jumped in. So hi, Justin. It's one of those things where if you say his name 3 times in a row, he just appears in your live chat. So I'm obviously going to be a little bit more biased towards the live streaming, because that's my comfort zone. That's where I love to hang out and build my community. So when it comes down to it, you can actually do both. You can do your regular monthly live streaming, or every 2 months or every 3 months, or whatever it is that you choose works for you and your community, even weekly. You can definitely do that, as well as launch with a live webinar. So you can totally do both. Like, as you know, Justin's here in the chat. He says his ears were burning. We know that Justin's about to open up Primal Video Accelerator for another intake, and he's running webinars next week, but he's also doing a live stream in a couple of hours. So he's probably, protecting his voice right now, so that he sounds Awesome. So it can work both ways. So basically, the main differences that I see between the webinar and the live stream is a webinar, depending on the software that you go with, and there's a lot of choices, again, of which softwares to choose. Depending on which one you go with will determine the interactivity that you have with the people watching. And it can be a little bit more of an insular, here is my slide deck, we're going to talk through it, and then we'll do some Q&A later. And it lets you, without interruption and without distraction to your viewers, put across your information. So whereas if you live stream on YouTube, I mean, anyone watching the live stream right now will see it around the screen. There'll be other suggestions that YouTube's throwing out there, like, oh, if you're enjoying this, and you might like this video or this video or this video, and it's all around it. And you don't have any control over what YouTube are putting in front of your audience. So when you're hosting a webinar, you want them to focus on what you're doing and what you're saying. So utilizing these webinar softwares is probably a better option. Whereas when you're live streaming and creating an interactive community, there's two totally different goals versus community building on live streaming on YouTube versus a webinar of information for people to learn a skill or to sign on to a program. Does that help?
Yeah, sure. And actually, this week I was on a 3-part course with a fellow named Mel Abraham.
Yeah.
And he ran it as a Zoom meeting, which was crazy. I mean, 150, 200 people at a time. Now, he had to use the mute all button a few times.
I bet he did.
But he used that option because he wanted to see everybody's faces.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting too, because I'm also a commercial Zoom customer. So I have a Zoom account for up to 100. I could extend that, but I could also use that as a bit of a, what do they call that? A limitation. So, the first 100 will get on Zoom, and then I could live stream it otherwise.
Yeah.
So if you're not in the first 100, you could go to the live stream and get it. And I've seen that used too, where you have a limited number in your webinar or your call, and then the rest are given a live stream address. Have you ever done that?
Yes, I have.
I just got notified by Justin that it sounds like I've got the wrong mic connected, so I'm just fixing that up right now. How's that? Is that better?
Remember when his kids turned his backwards one time?
So say that again.
I said, do you remember when we were on a call with him and his kids had turned his backwards, and everyone's trying to figure out why his mic sounded so horrible?
Yes.
Things happen.
It's live. It's exactly what happens. You can think you're as ready as you want to be, and then not be.
Right.
You can run all the tests that you want, but if you turn around your computer mic, actually, you know what? I actually really like this other microphone better. So Justin's like, boom, way better. Awesome. Thank you for that, Justin. I like the idea of the Mel using the Zoom with the big group. I did some training back at the beginning of the year, and it was a similar sort of thing. It was hundreds and hundreds of people on Zooms. We'd move into breakout rooms to have little discussion groups, and then we would come back and then be back to sort of active listening. And I felt that was a really good way to run something that was a little bit more interactive. For me personally, I love Zooms and I love group Zooms. Obviously, I hang out in a lot of Zooms, but I think that unless everyone is allowed to talk, it kind of, I don't know, it makes it harder. But yeah, like Justin says, I do like to see people's faces, because you can see if they're like, if they're actually active listening, or if they're like talking to somebody else away, or you can see if you've actually got their attention. And so that is a definite advantage to hosting on a Zoom. And if you've already, like, this is the thing, sometimes you've already got the licenses, you've already got access to something. Do you need to go to that next level, or is what you have good enough, especially for the first one? Like, just because you do it something one way to start with doesn't mean you can't test it and do something another way the next time. So you've already got the Zoom. You could possibly run it as a big Zoom room. With Zoom, you can input with OBS, the same as we are doing here with StreamYard. And so you can still have access to all of your OBS tools that you love and bring that into Zoom, so you can have multiple camera control. You can do all the things. It's quite easy to share screen. So if you have a slide deck to show, it's a little easier. Although I have heard that some people have a problem with it getting a little laggy when they start slide deck sharing and things like that. So it comes down to what's acceptable for you.
Yeah, I'm going to look at that. Of course, the Zoom requires an invitation, so it's
It
not.
does.
It's
They
not
have to
just
sign up.
sitting out there.
Yeah.
And you either have to log in through a browser or download Zoom and so on. And a lot of people are used to it. So I think maybe there's a place for both, because if I go live on YouTube, YouTube's going to promote that. They're going to send that out to all my subscribers.
That's right.
Which by now, thanks to Justin, is roughly 21,300, 22,000.
I was checking your channel out last night, and I was thinking you've come leaps and bounds in the last 12 months.
It's coming along.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
remind me to tell you about my mystery video that we talked about the other night.
I will. I'll have to remind you afterwards.
So getting back to this, also software costs. What is StreamYard, EVMux? What do they cost?
Well, it depends. Like with a lot of these softwares, they've got tiered pricing. So you can jump in and have a good look at them and a good dig around to see if you like them for free. A lot of them have a free option. Now that's watermarked. So if you're running a sort of a webinar or something like that, I don't recommend leaving a watermark on. I find that it looks like it's an aesthetic thing. Like, you couldn't even be bothered paying for the software, except you want me to pay my money to come and join your course. And that's a thing that's in my brain, and that may not be in anyone else's brain. They may not even notice the watermark, but it's something I personally notice, is like, hey, this software is watermarked. So I would make sure that you definitely get that first level, like play with it with the watermark. Decide if it's something that you like the look of, if it has the features that you want, because they all have slightly varying built-in things for their different levels. So StreamYard has their different levels. You get different resolution, and so you have to go to their top pro tier. Well, not that they've got one more tier above that you have to get pricing on, but their top pro tier available before you can get 1080p. So that, to me, like, I like 1080p. You can totally do fine with 720. Zoom is 720. And you can totally do a lot of stuff with 720, but I personally, I'm like, I like 1080. So I have to make that decision. 1080, is it worth all this extra money? And usually there's a lot of extra bells and whistles that you get when you upgrade to the 1080 on StreamYard. EVMux, again, has multiple tiers, so you can go in and have a play. And then again, off the top of my head, I can't remember which level, but there is a level where 1080 kicks in. And so you've got all these options. And so it's a really good idea to sit down and have a good look at their lists. Now, we've talked StreamYard, we've talked EVMux, but there's a ton. There's Restream, there's Prism, there's so many options. You're obviously very comfortable with OBS. That's always an option as well, just to stream directly with OBS. But there are some fun advantages to using some of these other softwares. Like, we're in StreamYard right now. There is a link in the description if you want to check out StreamYard if you're here watching. So you can bring on comments. So we can see that Doug says it's like you're all ready until your internet dies. Doug had a streaming mishap on the weekend. He was in the middle of a live stream and his internet dropped out. So it's pretty, yes, Doug, internet connection is fairly important for live streaming.
You would probably like my solution.
What's your solution?
Well, I have Comcast internet, which download is fine. It's like 980 download, but upload
That's
was only
980, right? Because like in
yeah.
Australia, it's quite often to have 9.8 as your
Oh
download.
no, 980.
Mm-hmm.
But upload, the max you can get out of Comcast without going into a commercial account is 30.
Yeah.
And with all the videos, I mean, I have 30 terabyte of storage just in my main computer. So I
Yeah.
wanted to go to online backups, an
Yeah.
online backup service. And also,
Yeah.
when I uploaded videos to YouTube, it was like, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes for a 10-minute video to upload it.
Once you finish, I'll tell you something about mine.
So,
But yep,
so I
go.
brought in AT&T,
Yeah.
960 up, 960 down.
Nice. I'm
And
sitting here being a bit jealous, I'll be honest.
and I uploaded my last video, and it took like 32 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible.
This is one of those things, like, you have to decide what works for you. Now, for me, here in Australia, those those upload and download speeds, unless you are hardlined into NBN, they're not an option. We don't get them. No one supplies them. And so I'm sort of sitting here going, oh my gosh, he's complaining at 10 to 12 minutes for an upload. I used to have to set my upload one night and hope it didn't crash overnight, because it would take 10 to 12 hours for a 7-minute video to upload. And then when I was able to change over to the internets here, the maximum I've been able to get without going onto a commercial is that 30 to 40 upload. And I'm like, oh my God, I uploaded a 7-minute video in like 15 minutes. I'm like, yeah, winning.
There you
And so
go.
it's all about perspective. It's all about like my internet connection right now. I'm using my 30 to 40. I'll just run a quick speed test. My 30 to 40 upload, and I have zero problems. So and the other issue is because Doug was streaming with Ecamm, which is it's a Mac only software for live streaming. It's got some fantastic features, but when his internet cut out, Ecamm instantly closes the connection. If something happened here on StreamYard, and I believe EVMux is the same, if my internet drops out, my picture will disappear. You'll stay there. The stream will keep going. And even if you weren't there, my little background picture would stay there. So I've got time to jump onto a mobile or whatever and then come back in and be like, oh, that was interesting. So having some fail safes behind you. I know Nick Nimmin, he uses StreamYard because where he lives is, a slight breeze can disconnect his power. So, and he's in Thailand, so he gets slight breezes quite often. So having something that keeps your stream open so you don't have to restart a whole new stream is also a reassuring thing. It does just keep the system running for you. I'm just having a look here. Right now, I'm 87 down and 30 up on my internet. So,
Okay.
and this is not terrible. This is not terrible. You don't need I've worked out now that basically as long as I have more than 10, I'm fine. Under 10, I want to start adjusting bit rates.
Yeah.
And so if I've got under 10, I stream directly through using OBS, because it means I've got full control over my bit rate, so I can decide what level I'm pushing my internet out on. So if you've got slower internet, you don't have to have these beautiful internet speeds that Russell's got. You can have dodgy Australian internet speeds and still get your live stream happening or your webinar happening.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is I have taken my old editing desktop machine, which was sitting here doing nothing,
Yeah.
and I'm repurposing it as a backup live machine. So
Yeah.
now I will be able to just switch machines and switch internet providers at the
Yeah.
flick of a switch.
I think for me personally, I think having backups is reassuring. Like, you really want to hope you never have to use them, but having backups is fantastic. So a few weeks ago, I was doing I do some remote live production, and I received notification that I was having a power outage. So the local energy company was like, we're turning your power off for the entire day. And I'm just sort of sitting there like, oh my gosh, okay. So luckily for me, I have also a spare machine that can be charged via USB-C. This one can't be. So I'm like, right, open up the windows, let the sunlight in. Luckily for me on that particular one, not on camera. So open up the windows so I could actually see what I was doing, powered up this other laptop, tethered my mobile phone to it, threw in like a brick for constantly charging all three, like the phone and the laptop. And I was able to run it that way with no power in my house whatsoever for
Wow.
an hour and a half live stream. So having these little backups, and even understanding that your backup may not be as good as the initial. It's better than not at all, right? Like, that's the thing to remember, is sometimes what you've got is better than none.
There you go.
So if you're worried about live streaming and all you've got is an iPad, or you've just got your phone, seriously, other than the fact that I'm blind and I wouldn't be able to read the comments on a phone and I'd need to have another device so I could read the comments, live streaming on your phone is totally an option now. Like, the signal strength, like, it used to be a case of it was flickery and it would drop out and do all these things, but all the technology is catching up. So even some of these more base level ideas really work. Like, even just to play and not play, test. Even just a test. I call it playing because I actually have a really good time testing out different softwares and testing out if, like, okay, now if I pull out the PowerPoint and I'm on battery power, what happens? Like, what changes? And because sometimes, like, different machines, it's like I'm in battery backup, I'm conserving my power. Some of them turn off your USB connections. So I found that the laptop stopped picking up this microphone every time I stopped talking, and I'd have to reconnect it. And so I had to go in and manually change the USB controllers so that it wouldn't do that. Actually, I ended up just changing the microphone. But there's lots of different things, and testing and trialing. You can do all this privately. You don't have to sit down and have your first stream go out to your entire channel while you're testing things. Justin's got a hilarious story where he feigned technical issues to bail out of a live stream that was syncing. And so, you've got all these options you can go live privately so that you can sit there, run through your thing, run through your script, run through your slides, everything, and make it totally private. And then you can go back and watch it and critique yourself, as long as you're not too hard on yourself, and go, okay, these slides were blurry, or and work out what it is that you want to change, or if you are happy with it, like, sweet. And now I have a recording of that as well that I can hack up. So you've got there's so many choices, Russell.
So all of these live stream programs, you can record right to your hard drive kind of thing?
It depends on the software. So StreamYard, you can't record you can record, but it records to the cloud and you can download it. EVMux, you can, again, I think it's recording to the cloud and then you can download it. And depending on the level of plan with EVMux, it actually has ISO recording. So it actually splits up, like, the different cameras and the different audios. So I could cut this and just cut you out. You could, like, legit do all that sort of stuff. What is it? Riverside FM. Excuse me. I was talking very much late into the night last night. My voice is not coping. Riverside FM and a couple like that, they will, when you're recording it, it actually will actually grab the signal off the other machine, because both machines do it, and it slowly uploads the other person's camera input back to you as well. So it's you sort of kind of need to let that person know, like, don't disconnect your internet straight away. It needs a minute. So when you're actually, like, having your conversation, your image might be a bit blurry because it's just doing that. But when you receive all the final files, everything's sharp and crisp and beautiful. So, like, everything has its, like, little, you need to be checking and reading, because most of them are saving to the cloud rather than to your device, especially if it's something like this where you have a guest.
So one of the things that gave me some trepidation with regard to going live,
yes, because there's always something that stops people,
was the thought that people are going to sit there and make horrific comments and I'd either have to stop and challenge them, or I know you've spoken about a moderator. How does that work? What makes a good moderator, and where do you get one?
Okay, so you don't have to respond to anything in a chat for a start. And I've found that the best way to deal with somebody who is trying to railroad or use your platform for their own agenda is ignore them. So don't give them a voice. It's your platform, it's your audience. You don't have to respond to them. They can scream and type as much as they like. You do not have to respond. And if it's someone who's being particularly off topic or just rude or whatever, you can literally hide them from channel. So they're sitting there typing away and they think that their chats are going through, but they're screaming into the void. You don't see it. No one sees it. No one in your audience sees it. And they are screaming into the void. And I take so much pleasure when I put someone into hide from channel when they've been particularly horrid, because I know they're just screaming into the void and they're like, ah, you know, it cracks me up. Like every time I'm like, ha ha ha, you shall scream into the void. Now that's a moderation tool. So when you here on YouTube, if you've got your moderator, they can click on the three dots and they've got a couple of options. They can put they can just remove a particular comment. So if someone just writes a comment that's inappropriate or not for this chat or something like that, you're trying to keep everyone on sort of on the same page and keep the conversation about a particular thing, you can remove individual comments without timing someone out or without deleting them. You can just get rid of one comment. If somebody doesn't get the hint, you can then put them in timeout for 5 minutes. And so they can't post for the next 5 minutes. So you can, you know, just not do that. Or if they really are just, you know, whatever, I'm not going to use the word. But if they're really just being like aggressive or rude or inappropriate or for whatever reason that they're what they're saying is not for this chat, or they're just like a bot or a troll or something like that, you can totally put them into hide from the channel. There are ways to remove people from your hide from the channel, so you can actually go back into the back end and go, okay, all right, like maybe it wasn't for this chat. You can unhide them. So it's not necessarily a permanent thing, but for them to be unhidden from a channel, you have to go, like the channel manager or channel owner has to actually go in, find them in the hide from the channel list, which once you've been live streaming a little bit, that list starts growing because you just instantly throw all your bots in there and all the spammers and scammers. And so, you've really got to want them back to find them. So, but to find a moderator, there's a couple of ways to find a moderator. So a really good way to get a good moderator is somebody who is in your community, somebody who knows your voice in a way, knows the things that you like to talk about, knows what you find acceptable in a chat. It's usually somebody who understands the concepts, and it's a really good way to engage more with your community as well. If you go, hey, such and such, I see you in my chat all the time. How would you feel about being a moderator? There are some things you need to trust your moderator, because that moderator doesn't just moderate your live stream chat. They can go and moderate the comments in your videos. So if for whatever reason your moderator gets grumpy at you, they can actually just jump in and just start deleting people's comments. They can.
In your YouTube videos?
Sorry?
In your YouTube videos, or in just your? Oh,
No.
because they're a moderator for YouTube as well?
They're a moderator for your channel. So everyone thinks a moderator is just for the live streams, and that's where you most actively see people's moderators, is just in the live streams. But when you make someone a moderator, it's a moderator on your channel. So you think about what you put out on your channel, they can hide users, they can delete comments, they can do that across all the content on your channel. So you have to be able to trust whoever it is that you've got moderating for you. And
So
there's ways like Russell, I actually moderate for a lot of people. So if you want me to moderate for you, you can hit my website and send me a message, and we can talk about getting me to moderate. And there's other people who moderate professionally as well, and you can pay them, and it's there's a contract, there's an agreement, but a really good way to set up moderators, whether it's a paid moderator or a volunteer moderator, is to create a spreadsheet or a list of information that's useful for them. So links that you might talk about in a live stream where, so you've got an affiliate link for something and you mention it. Your moderator can be like, oh, he said that thing. So put that link in so it's right there in the chat so people can, grab that. Or, if have it in there like, oh, if such and such is being a bit of a pork chop, that's fine. They're harmless. So the moderator knows, okay, that person's fine. I can leave their comments, even if they're being a bit silly. So you've got all these tools at your disposal to be able to train up your moderator to sort of speak with your voice, if that makes sense.
pork chop. I'm going to have to add that to my Australian vocabulary. I like pork chop.
I knew you were going to do that. I was like, oh no.
Do you have a course or a training video for this moderating?
For moderating, I don't at the moment. It's coming.
Okay,
But
I
in the
know I
meantime,
saw
Doug
one on.
Hewson, who is here it might not be in the chat now, but he was here. He has a really great couple of videos on his YouTube channel. They're a bit old, but they still stand.
I was going to mention, I saw a moderator training video on Doug's channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think Doug is probably one of the best moderators on YouTube. So
Well,
I'm really chuffed when I see him pop in because I know he has a day job. So he's probably supposed to be at work right now. So Doug is one of those people that he seems to he understands the room, if that makes sense. Different streamers have different tolerance levels for things. And that's what a good moderator does. They work out what it is that you want. They don't just moderate to what they think. They use their own judgment based on what they know of you.
Yeah, I see both of you on Nick Nimmon's lives.
Yeah.
And you do a great job.
Oh, thank you. I'm being trained very well.
and I love seeing you on Justin's stuff because you're always jumping in and being so helpful.
I thought you were going to say jumping in being so cheeky.
No, Earl. Well, that's on the private lines.
Yeah, that's true. Professionally, what people can see versus what they can't see are two different things.
Except for that one little slip there the other day, but never mind.
Say that again, sorry?
Except for that one little slip there in the last one.
Yeah.
Or is that a BBD reference or something?
Yeah, I was chatting with somebody and like I'd reply anyway, yes, it ended up coming and it was like I was just like, oh no, yeah, it is definitely.
What I often end up doing is I'm chatting privately with someone and then I have something I want everybody to say or to see, and I type it and it goes to that one person. Yes.
Yeah.
And they come back and go, why are you telling me that?
Yeah, it's like, is this meant for everyone?
Right.
Serena's jumped in and she's like, you can both be helpful and cheeky. Yeah.
Oh, I was afraid she'd show up because this is probably payback for me showing up at her live the other day.
I think you should be very afraid of Serena. Absolutely. Yeah. She is daunting.
Probably going to make us all giggle.
Possibly. There's a possibility that it's Serena that causes the giggling and not me. No. And this is the other thing, like, you have to decide your own tone. Okay. So here on this channel, I'm in like camp. YouTube's supposed to be fun. Live streaming is supposed to be about engaging with your community and having a good time. It doesn't mean you can't give good information at the same time as doing that, but you can still do it in a fun and encouraging environment, and you have to decide for yourself which tone you want to take, and how you want your live streams to be. There's a few different camps. Like there's some people that are like, live streams are for the replay. You've got to set it up for the replay. Don't interact with your community unless you can edit it out. And that is all true, right? Like if your goal for your live streams is to trim it down, lose the live chat, and just make it a piece of content for later, that's exactly what you need to do. If you do what I do, where you jump in and bring up someone's comment when they're talking, this is a conscious decision that I make with my live streams. I know that it will mean editing them is harder. And I know that it'll mean that it is more difficult to create, like make that into a piece of content for later. So when I'm talking to people about their live streams, they have to make that decision for themselves because there's pros and cons of both. So my live streams tend to be, especially over on my on my other channel, they tend to be more about the community. If I'm not chatting with them, then what's the point? They are the ones that have become channel members. They are the ones that support the channel. They join in every week. Some of them have joined in every week for 6 years. It is a community. It's nearly like a bunch of online friends to a degree. And that's a decision I made there. And then over here, I try to keep the chat a bit more on topic, although I'm very terrible at keeping on topic. And so I do still engage with the people that have made the effort to be here when we're here. Now, that's not to say that the people who aren't here when we're here miss out. They don't miss out. I make sure I go back in and answer any questions that come up in the comments and respond to everyone who comes back for the replay, because not everyone is available or awake when you're live streaming. So choosing your live streaming time for when your audience is around and can interact, that's also just trial and error.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing some live streams where I do interviews. In my particular business, for example, insurance or finance all come into play. So I could get an insurance agent who had a lot of knowledge of the industry and do an interview. But then I can see where you're kind of getting into that gray area between, do you want it to be a comedy show or do you want it to be a serious discussion?
I mean, it doesn't have to be a comedy show, but the other thing is you can still interview people live, but actually just record that rather than live stream it and then upload it as a piece of content. That's an option as well. So you're still interacting with your guest live, but you're just recording, so you don't have the chat there. There's ups and downs of not having the chat available for your interviews. That the up is you're not distracted by the chat, you're not answering like that, they're not creating expectation, you don't have to worry about moderating. Excuse me. There's a lot of advantages to that. You get to have a good serious interview on a good serious topic. The downside is if somebody was watching that and they had a really good question that person could answer, you miss out on that. So it's a balancing act. Both are correct. Both work. You just have to decide which one works for you.
So I'm going to go back to one a little more technical question. Zoom
I hope I can answer it.
Zoom is somewhat notorious for bad audio. And here we are on StreamYard, and your audio to me sounds just crystal clear. I mean, better than I could expect on a landline phone, it's just perfect. So I'm wondering, doing them versus a Zoom interview versus using one of the live stream platforms for that purpose, if I wouldn't get a better product.
You would get a better product. There's no doubt. So there's a lot of people that use Zoom because they're comfortable with Zoom and they have Zoom. I have Zoom. I use Zoom for a lot of things, but I don't use Zoom for interviews because I want a different level of a polished, finished item. And these live streaming softwares, they know we want the best possible resolutions, audio qualities that we can get. And that we will jump ship if we're not getting it. There's options. We can go somewhere else. Zoom was initially brought out as a business tool for companies to run conferences and webinars and just calls between staff members. And it's great for that. But if you have a look at most business laptops and business machines, the top webcam setting that you can get in a laptop is 720p. Now, obviously, there's a few that are bigger, but most of them are out there of 720p. So Zoom doesn't care so much. As long as people can hear enough to get the gist of what you're saying, they're happy, they're cool, that's it, hands off. Whereas these live streaming softwares like StreamYard, EVMux, and all of these, Restream, Ecamm, all of these live streaming softwares, they're going that next level because they're not just competing with each other. They're also trying to compete with how comfortable people are with softwares like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. So it's one of those things where it's serving a different thing. Like if you've got a big group, Zoom's the way to go, because in a lot of these softwares, the max you can get is 10. So if you're running a small group, you could still use this software. But if you're running a large group, you need to go to Zoom. That's where Zoom is a powerhouse, is that it can cater for these enormous crowds of people. And it's because it is compressed. It's because they have lower resolutions on screens and what have you. And that's sort of their corner of the world. And tons of people are very used to Zoom and they're very comfortable with Zoom because, especially over the last few years, that's how they've interacted with a lot of different things. So, and if you've already got Zoom, you're already paying for Zoom. Use Zoom. But if you're looking at an upgrade, if you're looking at something different, I would definitely be looking into StreamYard, EVMux, Restream. If you're a Mac user, check out Ecamm. Ecamm, I think you can only bring on one guest if there's someone Macish here. That would be cool if they could confirm that. But I know that even people who use Ecamm, if they're having a guest, they do tend to jump onto something else.
No, that's extremely valuable thought to me, that this would be a better interview platform. And I don't mind paying for Zoom and paying for
I do. I pay for
both. or something else. That's just all part of business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the downside to webinars, is if you're going to go to Zoom webinar for 500, that's a serious chunk of change.
It is.
And especially if you're doing one a month, you're paying an awful lot for that one webinar.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually, that's on the cheaper side of some of the webinar softwares. Some of them are quite expensive. Serena said there's really useful info about Zoom for live streaming and why and when to go for a live streaming specific program. Thank you, Serena. Because it's the difference between a webinar versus a live stream. One of the big differences, usually with a webinar, and I'm saying usually because obviously there will be variations. Usually with a webinar, it's either a free thing someone signs up to where they'll learn something and maybe given an offer at the end of it to next level, so to pay something. Whereas live streams tend to be a lot of free. And so your webinars, like good webinar software, you pay for, and you're paying corporate prices. You're not paying YouTube prices. So, if a really good software, you could be slugged with quite a hefty sum per webinar. But it's because the webinar software companies know that if you're running a webinar, there's a good chance you're in there to sell something. And so it's a different transaction. And whereas with the live streaming softwares, quite often people will live stream and the only funding that they will get might be some ad revenue, which is, squat. And the occasional membership or super chat if your channel is currently monetized. So they understand that you're paying out and may not be getting something or may not be getting a lot back to start with. So there's a total different pricing point. A lot of the good live streaming softwares like StreamYard have an option for an annual where you save. So, if you can fork out for a year up front, you end up saving a month or a couple of months worth of fees. And while it's hits your hip pocket at one point, it actually saves you in the long run. So
Zoom, you can get Zoom webinar for 1 month if you want to. So for a big launch, which I'm on my first launch, so I don't think it's going to be a big launch.
Yeah. Do you have any rough numbers that you're willing to share of what you think your first launch will be?
Well, I'm shooting for a beta group of 15.
Okay.
I have an email list of about 830.
Yeah.
So let's just assume I could get 10 to 15% of that list. That would
Yeah.
be an audience for a presentation of around 100.
Yeah. Whereas, and if you want everyone's faces on screen, you'll probably need to go to Zoom for that.
Right. So
because it's
I'm
over the
thinking
10.
now Zoom, but then live stream it at the same time.
Yeah.
Just so that if I fill out that 100 on Zoom, or somebody says at the last minute, oh, I wonder if I could catch that. Well, they can catch
Yeah.
it right on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah.
it will go out to all my subscribers. And I'm not sure. That's another thing I have to think about, because I was only going to make this offer to my email list,
Yeah.
my inner circle. So now if I go live stream that's out there, I'm sort of extending the offer beyond that. So that's another thing to think about.
So, something else to think about is if you've got people who've signed up to come into a webinar, are they aware that you're going to live stream that with their faces on the screen? You need to make sure they're aware of that. You can't just record it and put it up on YouTube and not expect, a possibility of, hey, why is my face there? I gave no permission.
Right. That's a very good point. Very good point.
So I find that do a live stream to get people to sign up for your webinar, and then record your webinar, host it somewhere, even privately. I actually have a separate YouTube channel where I'll host things so that people can come and rewatch it later. And it's private. I like to keep everything a bit separate. I don't like my unlisted stuff on my standard channel. So I have a few channels. So then they can still get access to the replay, but only the people who signed up for it can watch the replay. Because they're the people that are there. So that makes it so people sign up as well. It's like, if you don't sign up, even if they sign up and then are unable to make it to the actual meeting, they can have access to the replay, but they have to sign up first.
So I've stolen an awful lot from Justin Brown, and I think I'll maybe steal something else from him here then, because that sounds like kind of a
he'd mind. I mean, I'm assuming, but I don't think he'd mind.
I'm just thinking that I could do a live stream before I do any webinars and invite people to join my inner circle if they want any more information. And then that will add to my email list.
Yeah.
Then take that email list and use it to offer the first 100 to come in to go to a Zoom conference or something like that.
Yeah.
So that might
definitely,
be
and that gets you qualified leads, people who are not just like happen to be strolling through YouTube and catch a really pretty, beautiful image of Florida and start watching a video. No, you are capturing the people that are actually, I'm moving to Florida. I want to live in manufactured housing, and I want to learn exactly what I need to do. I need to understand the pitfalls. I need to understand the perks. So I'm going to sign up for this webinar, and I'm going to learn all of the things. So you want to make sure you're getting your qualified leads to come through that way. But you're also protecting their privacy as well. So I know for myself that if I join into a Zoom and I see it's being recorded, I always have to double think, where are they going to be sharing this recording? And are they going to be sharing it? So you need to sort of let people know up front before they sign up that, yeah, there'll be replays available for those people that sign up. So they know instantly it's going to be recorded. The replays will be available. And even people who didn't make it to the Zoom but signed up, they'll be able to watch it.
Well, I think now with Zoom, you have to agree. You have to click a box that says, I agree to be recorded if it's being recorded. So there's, while you certainly can make the announcement, the legal end of it is covered there, I think.
From my perspective, if I turn up to a Zoom room that I wasn't expecting to be recorded, I sit there and decide, do I want to be recorded for this?
Well, sure.
I'd like to know going in that, and even just by saying replays will be available to people who sign up, that is covering your butt, but it's also an addition to your offer, so that if they don't make it, it's okay, because you could have somebody moving from Australia to Florida who's not available at the time of your Zoom because
you might be
they're
surprised,
sleeping.
but looking at my demographics, I do get people from Australia.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. Like there's people from all around the world that travel to different places and are looking online for how to move internationally. And so remembering that your audience may not be awake when you're running your Zoom, either run multiple Zooms, like, again, steal a page out of Justin's book and run multiple Zooms across different time zones, or make the replay available, but making it so that people know when they're signing up that there will be a
Yeah,
replay. That's actually part of an offer as well. That's not just a legal butt covering.
sure.
It's
Sure.
both.
No. Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first published my book, I got a note from a fellow in London, England, said he just saw it in a bookstore. And I was like, London, England? What the heck? But yeah, stuff's all over the world.
Stuff is all over the world. It's not a small world anymore.
So I'll tell you my little video story. So we were on the PVA call the other day, and I
Mhm.
mentioned to Justin that I had a video that I did on Daytona, Florida,
Mhm.
which is dear to my heart. It's where my wife and I spent 12 to 15 years of our summer or winter vacations at the
Yeah.
racetrack and so forth. And it was one of the most cinematic movies I've made. It took 2 trips up there and 190 gigabyte of video. I mean, a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of editing. So I was really happy with the video. And so I put it up online, and this particular one just so happened to fall that I put it up on a Saturday morning, which should be a really good time to post.
Yeah.
And it went up to its initial surge for the first 4 or 5 hours was about normal, and then it flatlined.
Yeah.
And 4 days later, it was still flatlined and thousands of views below any other video I'd published for a very
Yeah.
long time. And I couldn't figure out why. And we had a discussion on PVA about that.
Yeah.
Yesterday afternoon at 3 o'clock, between 3 and 4, because you can see hourly updates for your videos. I happen to look between 3 and 4, that video went from 12 views an hour, 10 views, 6 views an hour to 72
Yeah.
in 1 hour. And the next
Mhm.
hour, it was 90. Since
Yeah.
then, over 1,000. I have no idea why. It's crazy.
I'm gonna give you my opinion, and it is just an opinion. This was slightly different content. It was still the region that you talk about, but it was slightly different content than what you usually cover. And YouTube shared that with your usual audience, and they were like, yeah, it's not really what we get into. But then YouTube found who would like something more cinegraphic, more, a different storytelling style than what you usually do. And they found your new audience. And sometimes you've got to give YouTube time. Like everyone's like, oh my God, my video flatlined in the first 2 hours. And I sort of sit there thinking, really? Like I upload it, I'm not checking it for a week, and it's one of those things is you got to give YouTube time. And sometimes they need a little more time than other times, especially if it's something a little bit different than what you normally create. It's not to say it's a bad thing. It's just different.
It wasn't much different. And I mean, the title, the description, I mean, my whole technique was the same. It's just that I spent a little more time editing it. It was a little more polished. But yeah, I mean, either that or maybe the YouTube guides were just off on a different channel for a few days helping somebody else. And then the Pixie Angel showed up and said, oh, wow, he's got this one that's 4 days old. We better get on this.
Yeah, and it could be so many different things.
Yeah.
It really could be. It could have been that something was happening with your usual audience time. It was like a special weekend, or school holidays are over, or the weather was nice. There could be so many different reasons why a video doesn't pop off, and many of them you have zero control over. You make your video, you do what you can, you put it out there, and sometimes you just have to pull on your patience pants and just let it go. Like, let it just sit there for a bit before you start jumping in and tweaking it and changing thumbnails and, changing titles and, all that sort of stuff. there's multiple camps. Like some people, like if my video doesn't pop off in the first hour, I'm changing the thumbnail, I'm retitling it, you know. And for me, I'm like, well, you're basically going back to the start every time you do that. So
Right, yeah.
I'm a bit more of a patience person. So yeah, it's different. Like everyone has, like, there's different styles, and different styles work for different audiences. You got to work out what your audience wants and do that.
Well, it was just
So,
a
and
shock to me because I
yeah,
put out, this was my 42nd video. And I want to say after the first 10, they have all followed, almost all, other than a few that just went to the moon. But
yeah,
almost all of them follow the same path, same trajectory. I mean, it got kind of boring after a while. It was like watching airplanes take off at the airport. They go out the same runway and up the same path, you know. And then this
yeah,
one just took off and flew 400 feet over the trees. And I was like, what the heck?
yeah,
So, and
yeah,
now all of a sudden somebody hit the engines and off it went. So who knows?
yeah,
I'll have to report back in a month or so how it wound up.
yeah. I would definitely be interested to hear how it went. Goodness me.
So how's your new studio working out now that you've got it organized?
I think it's good. I think it's good. I think changing up the microphone was a big thing. I love my Rode NTG and I've been using it for years. But because I've moved my studio into my house, you know, I have a family, I have pets. I don't have the same like space around my studio. So I could be in here, I could be at my studio working and you know, not bothering the family. But now, like, that wall there is the wall on the other side of that is my daughter's bedroom. And so, you know, if I'm streaming quite late at night or doing something I'll hear her complaining through the wall. Like, oh, geez, mum, do you have to yell? So adding in some like additional sound blankets and things like that are definitely helping. And it's just adjusting to something different, and changing the microphone was awesome because this picks up me and a lot less of what was happening around, because my kitchen is just through there. And so the family go in to make themselves a drink and slam a cupboard or whatever. And it was all being picked up. Like no one was doing anything like, except when they were being silly, no one was doing anything particularly noisy. It was just the nature of the microphone I was using was picking up all the noise. And so, and there's nothing wrong with the microphone. I love it. And I still use it for many, many things. Like if there's no one home and I'm recording something, I'll still use the other microphone because it's my comfort place. I'm still learning that I can't move my head over here to, you know, and I move around, I talk, and I can hear a cat climbing my screen right now. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It's less than 3 feet away, and there's a cat climbing a screen, meowing at me, because I'm ignoring him and not bringing him in the house when he obviously wanted to. But yeah, so like that's less than. It's probably 2 feet from the microphone that this is happening. I can hear it as clear as day. So sometimes choosing your equipment depends on the space that you've got. But in saying that, don't let the equipment be why you don't go live. Like this live stream started out and I was connected to, it was actually the mic in a webcam, because I've got a few webcams around, and StreamYard picked up the webcam and I thought I'd chosen this one and hadn't. And then, you know, someone let me know that my audio sounded odd and was I, you know, did I have the right microphone plugged in? So everyone could still hear me. Everyone could still understand what I was saying. It was just a bit meh. But the message that I was putting across didn't change.
Well, you did that live from your backyard the other day, and it was just fine. And that was your phone. And you even read my comments.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I grabbed the correct glasses for that particular task. I have a few pairs. But yeah, and that was the thing. I decided, okay, I'm going to go live. I'm going to use Instagram, which is something I don't use a lot of for lives. And I just had headphones plugged in and used a little microphone on the headphones and just my mobile phone out in the backyard. So I could hear birds and, you know, just regular yard noise. And it was fine. Like there was no problems. So you just got to it's very easy to decide not to go live because of what you don't have. And I think if you've got a message or you've got something, information that you want to impart, go live. If you're not happy with it later, you can always remove it. You know, most platforms allow you the delete option. So go live and practice and get comfortable, because that's the only way that you will learn to go live, is by going live. And it actually ends up helping with your video creation as well, because if you can sit there and talk for 30 minutes about something you're passionate about, then there's a good chance you'll be doing less cuts and less editing, because you can now, you know that you need to, say something in a manner that is understandable for people. I speak weirdly, so I quite often still have to edit. And and so it can really help in a huge number of areas of your YouTube journey. I'm just having a look here. I had some questions written down here for you, and I'm just having a quick look. One of them was a question about pitfalls and areas to stumble upon when you're going live. What sort of things would stop you from going live, Russell?
Well, I already mentioned the ersatz comments, possibly. As you can see, I'm very bashful. So
Yeah, totally.
Uh, so that probably doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a degree in this industry of liability. I have to be a little careful about what I say, because some of these corporations are very big with lots of lawyers. And if you kind of inadvertently answer a question that in a manner that might affect their business, that could be a concern. But and then there's the odd story I heard, and maybe you can verify if this is true, of somebody popping an avatar up that was offensive, and suddenly your channel got little notices.
That legit happened. StreamYard channel was deleted by YouTube. Like the company this is their StreamYard software, they have their own YouTube channel, which they have regular live streams doing Q&As and helping people. And they were bringing up people's comments on the screen. So here's one from Freaky Geek, saying, I don't speak weirdly. Thanks, Freaky. I appreciate that. But see how he's got the image there of the flower, the icon image of some of their comments. The comment itself was harmless. It was a question, but that image went against YouTube's terms of service. So it just means that if you're bringing people's comments on screen, you need to be able to see their profile picture. Like I can see here that Serena it's her face. She's just smiling. It's fine. But sometimes people's images, you're a bit like, what is that? In those instances, if I can't instantly work out that something is harmless, I will read their question. Like if their question is good, I will read their question and not bring it on screen, because YouTube has a lot of rules around and guidelines around inappropriate content, and you can have your account deleted if you just need to have 3 strikes within a 90-day period, which if you have trolls coming through your live stream, you could have 3 strikes in one video. And so you need to make sure that you're comfortable, that you understand what that imagery is in their icon before you bring it into your stream and share it. Because while it's in the chat, that's fine. And YouTube lets them upload that picture. That's fine. But it's not until you bring it into your video that it becomes a problem.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
So if you don't trust the image, don't use the image.
And I suspect it takes a bit of getting used to going live and having 2 or 3 people, 4 people on there. And, but maybe down the road in the next day or two, 60 or 90 people might watch it. So I think that might take me a little getting used to. Although I've certainly heard of people going live with nobody showing up and doing a quite successful presentation and then having it do very well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the number of people that turn up onto a live stream does not denote whether that live stream was successful. Because if you talked about one thing and directed one person to a link that created a sale or a connection or something, whatever is an indicator of success for you, that one person could have meant the world. And so if you have one person turn up who watches a replay or watches, they may not even comment. And so you don't even know who it is. And the next thing you know, you're like, hang on a second, someone used my affiliate link and bought $11 billion worth of stuff. And I got commission on all of that. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have to work out what your success is and planning your live stream so that if no one comments and you have to carry the whole thing yourself, that is a skill that you need to get down pat, but also be willing to, if someone drops a question in, to have a point somewhere, depending on how you want to run your live stream, have a point somewhere where you'll go back and answer that question. So it may not be the second they drop it. It
So
might be towards the end.
do you lay out your live streams like in a bulleted sort of manner? Do you actually script them, or do you just wing it start to end?
It depends. So the Fiberific live streams, I wing it. I know instantly there'll be at least 20 people jumping in. Closer to 40 is usually what happens, and the chat is active. I've got my craft. I've got multi-camera set up. You know, you've seen them. You know what they're like.
Mm-hmm.
And those live streams are for the community. I run those live streams for those people to get to talk and ask questions and have conversations. That's what they're for. So those ones are fly by the seat of the pants. Like, I'll be like, oh, live streaming in 10 minutes. I suppose I should drag some craft over, like that's it. Every now and again, I'll have something that I want to talk about and I'll put that out at the start. I'll be like, okay, everybody, normally we would be jumping in and doing craft, whatever, but I want to talk about this new product because I don't like it or I do like it or whatever. And I will plan out those a little bit more. I might have organized some photos to bring on in OBS or whatever. But usually on that channel, it's fly by the seat of the pants. On this channel, it's different. I run the live streams differently because it's for a different audience. It's not for people who are coming and hanging out every week for the last 6 years that are all becoming friends and have joined the Facebook group and, are all interacting with each other all the time now. On this one, I have questions. But I may have an idea of where I want to go with a live stream, but I'm interviewing people. I'm talking to another human. I want them to be able to answer their question and that answer create a whole new question that's not on my list. I hate watching interviews where it is blatantly obvious that the person interviewing is not listening to the answers. I was watching some interviews earlier this week and the person answered the question and then the interviewer basically asked another question that person had just literally answered. And I'm sort of sitting there going, they just answered that because their answer of their question encompassed the answer of the previous question. Plus they, expounded on it. They filled it out more. And then that filling out answered that second question. And they were so, and ask this question, then ask this question, then ask this question. They were so caught up in the process of the questions that they had to get out that they were missing what was being said. And I think that, again, it's a personality thing. It's a difference of opinions, and there's no wrong opinions except for when people don't agree with me. Then they're wrong. You need to allow people that opportunity to create a conversation. So Serena and I, when we did our interview a few weeks back, I'd done research. I had a list of questions for her. We got one question off my list. And then we went in a totally different direction. And we had a really amazing conversation that was a fun conversation to have. It was like two friends sitting over a coffee having a talk. It was a real conversation. It wasn't just a, 60 minutes interview. And I think depending on what you want, you have to make those decisions for yourself. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to be that 60 minutes interview, or do you want to have conversations with people? Because neither of them are wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think one use that I could put lives to is I get a lot of requests in my comments on my videos for consultation or for what should I do about this? What should I do about that? And I pretty much hesitate to answer, because if you answer one, you've got to answer 1,000 of them. But I've given some thought to just holding a monthly live where you can come type your question in and I'll do my best to answer it. So that would be interesting. Should I wait wait till I pop into Faberific? Can I even say that? Faberific.
Apparently not. Fiberific.
Fiberific. There we go. I've got it. Should I wait till then to ask how Freaky got her name, or should I ask now?
You can ask now, and Freaky's a he, just so you know.
Oh, Freaky's a he. Okay.
Freaky's a he.
So
Freaky, if you're happy, just drop in the chat how you came up with Freaky Geek as your user handle.
There you go.
But yeah, you don't have to wait. So, and this is the thing, like, it's your channel, it's your live, you get to decide. Because the advantage of going live is people get to see a slightly different side of you than the highly polished version that you put out in your videos. Because most people, when they make a video, and this is I say most people, this is a generalization. Quite often people's edited content is carefully framed. The words that they say, the language that they use, the body mannerisms, everything is very careful. They can edit things out. They don't like that their eyes looked over here. They cut that shot and throw some B-roll over the top of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got so much more control. When you are live, it's even when you are being very guarded and very cautious about what you share, there's still things about your own personality and there's still things about you that will inherently come out. And I actually think that builds a better connection for you and your audience. And that's a personal belief. But I think when people are sitting there talking with you and they're seeing that, you dropped your coffee cup on the floor or something and you're like, stink. And you're like covered in coffee or whatever, they get to see more reality. And that's why reality TV is so popular, even though it's trash, is people feel like there's a bit more of a connection because it feels more real. And live streaming is that. Freaky has given us the answer. I was called a freak by school bullies, and I stretched the name out as I like technical things and other hobbies. So Freaky Geek.
Well, we would have that in common. I'm a very tech kind of guy.
Yeah.
In my former life, they would give me not only a boat, but $500,000 in computer hardware and multi-beam data gathering software and hardware, and send me places. And I had to hook it all up, do about a 2-day job, tear it all apart, and do it again with an entirely different suite of sonar and GPS and everything else a week later. So yeah, I definitely geek out on the technical stuff.
That's something I've definitely noticed about you, Russell, is you're not afraid of technology. There's a lot of people who are like, if it's not the built-in webcam of their laptop, that's it. They're not, no. Whereas like you showed me your studio setup earlier, and it is a space station. It's a legit space station. And you're not afraid of the technology, and you're not afraid of testing and trialing and just giving things a go. And I think that's something that you'll notice is inherent with live streamers. Is they're not afraid to give something a go, because you can plan it. You can be like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this transition. I'm going to make this happen. And sometimes it doesn't go to plan. You just have to keep going. You're live. There's no stopping.
So I'll tell you a funny story. I had a couple of plumbers here to do some work, about 4 or 5 weeks ago. One of them was in his 30s, and he was actually thinking of starting a YouTube channel for teaching people how to do certain things with plumbing. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I do a little with YouTube. And he goes, oh, that's nice. But his assistant, young guy, was maybe 25. He said, oh, yeah. He says, I'm thinking of doing YouTube too, that you can make a ton of money on that. I could make me $1 million in 2 months. I said, oh, really?
Really?
Okay, that's neat.
How's he planning on doing that?
I wish you well. And so when they got done with their job, I happened to be in my studio office, and so they called me. I said, come on in. They come in and they look around, and the older guy, he says to me, wow, you really know how to make YouTube videos and stuff. I said, yeah, I make quite a few, have a fairly successful channel. The younger guy looks at me and he goes, I thought you were too old to know any of this stuff.
Oh, and yes, it's the answer is that there's people who instantly look at somebody and judge whether that person can do something. And they got no idea of your background. Like, this is a walk in the park compared to what you used to do. Like,
I
you're
see
using software that you know works.
Freaky says, I can't handle anything that could be damaged by electrical charges, get shocked a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I used to work on a radar system, air search radar system, when I was in the Coast Guard. And we actually had a fellow who accidentally touched the wrong place. It's like, I want to say 50,000 volts. And it literally threw him across a room.
Throw him straight into a bulkhead.
Yeah. It was ungodly. So I'm afraid I learned to deal with a lot of high voltage stuff. Grounding wands. That's the key.
Yep. I used to wear a lot of static bracelets.
There you go.
Yeah, because I used to do a lot of work building computers. And so I'd try and be grounded at all times.
You know, when I first started in computers, I heard all that stuff and I had them for a little while. And since then, I've handled CPUs and memory and everything else. I've never had a static discharge problem, ever.
See, I create static every time I walk. I'm that person that shuffles their feet and, so I have to ground before I touch anything.
So this must be your electric personality.
Let's go with that. On that note, Russell, do you have any other questions and do you want me to clarify anything? How do you feel about the conversation we've had?
No, it's been wonderful. I've learned a lot, and you certainly have a wealth of knowledge on live streaming. And if I understand you correctly, you're putting your services out as moderators for professional broadcasts and things.
There's a few options. So if you want to check out my website at chantellehills.com and jump into the About page, you can see some of the services that I offer there.
That's neat. Yeah, you say you've already got them listed and stuff?
Yeah. It's pretty basic, but they're up.
Good for you.
So
good for you.
It's
wonderful.
It's new.
Well, if it's new, it's a little scary, and if it's a little scary, it means you're growing.
Yes, and I think one of the I don't know who said it first, but if you're comfortable, you're not growing. So learn to be uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah, we hear that a lot. Thanks again, Chantelle. It was just wonderful. I'm sorry we didn't laugh quite as much as you and Serena, but
that's all right. I think we can cope.
Now I've got to find out when her next live broadcast is so I can go haunt that.
Yeah, no pressure, Serena. Thanks so much for coming and joining in. I popped Russell's YouTube channel in the description below. So if you want to go and learn more about Florida manufactured housing and what Russell's doing, you can go and check that out. And then from there, he's got all the links to his website and things like that in there. I've also added in some additional links than I usually would. Today, Justin Brown will be going live in about 40 minutes over on his channel, doing a live Q&A over there. And the Primal Video Accelerator group is opening up for more intake. So if you want to learn the ins and outs of all the way from video creation, all the way up to affiliate marketing and automation of emails and things like that, definitely go and check that out. Links are in the description. Serena's still in the chat. She's laughing now.
So I have one more funny story to tell you, just because it has to do with your neck of the woods in Australia and manufactured housing.
Okay.
So out of the blue, I happen to be on the board of directors also of our National Manufactured Housing Association.
Yeah.
And out of the blue, a group from Queensland contacted us and said,
just so you know, it's Queensland.
Oh, well,
yeah.
As long as the Queen owns it, I'm good.
It's the Queensland.
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 And so they contacted us and they wanted to talk with us about advocating for homeowners in, what do you call them? Caravan parks.
Caravan parks, yep.
Caravan parks, right.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. But then what I learned was that Queensland actually has an outstanding set of regulations for manufactured housing, certainly as good as Florida's. And the rest of the territories don't. So I learned something new.
Well, I did not know that. I didn't know that at all. But yeah, I've noticed that when you go away on holidays, you quite often can rent some space in a caravan park. So whether or not you bring your own caravan or you rent a caravan, excuse me, but quite often now you're not renting a caravan, you're renting a manufactured little house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a couple of bedrooms and a kitchen, a little patio. And so we quite often will go on little holidays for places, and you just basically bring your food and yourselves and walk in. And one of the things I love about it is there's quite often not stairs, you know, or only one or two stairs, me and stairs, not friends. So yeah, it's like a little home away from home, but and it's very common now for people to live in them. So I'm happy to hear that they're changing the regulations and they're making it clearer of what you can and can't do.
Yeah, no, they're really good. The only difference is what costs, I want to say 120,000 US here for a home is about 400,000 Australian there. Those homes are expensive.
Yeah, our real estate here is pretty pricey, and especially at the moment, it's crazy. The real estate prices in Queensland have just gone through the roof. So, and not just for manufactured housing, but all housing and apartments and everything. It's just insane. I remember I do this thing where it's like, oh, I'd like to visit a place. How much is the real estate there? I don't know why I do it. I just do it, right? There's no logic. So I was like, I want to go and check out LA. And I was looking at these LA houses and I'm like, okay, this is a decent suburb of LA. Why is this house only $400,000? Because here you can live in like crime capital and the house is $400,000.
Wow.
You know, I'm like, what is wrong with this? But then I found out real estate's cheap in the US compared to Australia. And like our dollar it's not on parity or anything like that, but it's not disgusting. It's not double the price like it is in the UK. So, you know, I was just like, hang on a second, even with conversion rates, that's still an excellent buy. Like what? But then I also remember that our wages are better here. So we don't, how do I put this? Our minimum wage means you can generally, not always, especially not at the moment with rents, but usually you can live off a minimum wage. Whereas in the US, minimum wage, you need a couple of those.
Right. No, if I were to move to Australia, I'd have to live out in the whoop whoop.
Out in the whoop whoop. Are you practicing your Australian on me, Russell?
There you go. Bloody right.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, I hope you have a corker of a day, Russell. And but yeah, no, thank you so much for joining me today and asking all of your questions. And I hope that, you know, this has helped to give you some groundwork to make your decisions on which way you want to go and actually just jump in and go live.
We'll let you know. Thank you.
No worries. And I'll catch everybody else either in Justin's live stream or here on the channel for the next interviews. Bye.